Y'all ready to blaze away or what?
The TGU has finally concluded. I am told that this tournament was legendary. I completely missed the whole thing because my schedule was all off. I thought today was going to be the top 8. I woke up and I seen that the top 8 already concluded. I'm like, okay, cool. I hear that Knee did incredible. Knee is back is what Arsenal and Ash says. VDX is chanting the name. Knee, Knee, Knee. The tournament was absolutely stacked. The players did absolutely amazing. You did have some heartbreaks. Some people got knocked out of the top 20 spot. Other people will move on. They will either have to go into the LCQ or the regional finals to try to find their way forward. But all in all, the tournament was largely considered a success. But that doesn't mean there wasn't a major controversy that had gone on during this tournament as well. We all know Tekken 8 has been absolutely struggling over the past 2 weeks. So players is kind of sick of it, and we really needed this tournament to deliver. And the competition did, but Bandai Namco, they weren't able to. Now, what happened was you had a Chinese player by the name of XCC be disqualified from the tournament. This guy, I believe at the time, was on winner's side, top 16. So this person was doing incredible in the tournament. There was many people on the internet, many people on Twitter who was talking about this situation and how basically unfair it is. This guy was out there putting everything on the line, just like everyone else. Showed up, dedicated, prepared, and just wanted to play. To be fair to Bandai Namco, this was not a surprise attack, a gotcha, get out of here. This is something that they notified the players of well in advance. And I think this is something we have to think about, is like, how was this person who's not supposed to be participating according to Bandai Namco made it this far to a tournament? Because also you could talk about this person not supposed to be a part of the tournament, but then beating several players and, you know, altering the results of the entire tournament. Top 16 is very far. The farthest back I can go to where a player was banned from a tournament is this Russian player here over a year ago. So this is Tekken 7 we're dealing with. Bandai Namco does not allow Russian players to participate in the TWT. As you can see, this person here tried to sign up, and the tournament he signs up for sends him this notification. We regret to inform you, but we just received news from Bandai Namco that Russian are not allowed to participate in the TWT event. We will refund the registration fees to you. Now, when you talk about the Chinese player, this is also how far this person should have got. The tournament organizers should have realized what was happening and be like, oh no, sorry, you can't compete. This is what we have rules for. On their website, they have this long entire sheet of all the companies that can participate. When you look at this, you will not see Russia, you will not see China, you will actually not see a couple of places. There's a couple of places that is not allowed to participate. Some of them only in the tournament side, but then you also have at the start of Tekken 8, there was many regions of the world that was blocked from even playing the game themselves when they had access to playing Tekken 7. You had this Reddit post be made that kind of summarizes the whole thing. Bandai Namco / Tekken Project banned Iranian IP. I bought Tekken on Steam and it was half of what I earned per month, but I can't play. Why? Because Tekken Project / Bandai Namco banned Iranian's IP. It's so cruel and unnecessary. Sanctions are against the Iranian government and the people who work for the military, not gamers. Harada did respond to this person. I would show you those posts right now, but I know at the end of this, Harada told them, like, if you want this situation to be resolved, you have to go to Sony for it. And then what he also did was he went to Sony himself to try and get the situation resolved. Now, we're 8 months away from that, and as you can see, none of those restrictions have been listed. So I think we all can assume that Sony did not budge, but this is how far back region restrictions go from the tournament side and also for the game itself. And the sad thing about this whole thing is that players are being punished for what their governments are doing. The sanctions are placed on, let's say, Russia because they started the Ukrainian war. Sanctions are placed on China for a complex number of reasons. You could talk about Taiwan, you could talk about many different things. But the point is, a lot of these sanctions ends up hurting the civilians, the athletes, and also the gamers. And a lot of people, that just doesn't sit well in their hearts. No one can choose where they're born or what country they grow up in. A lot of people will outright speak against their country. Sometimes they can't, sometimes they can. This is something that other tournament organizers, whether you talk about real sports or you talk about esports, understand. They know. Something that I also seen players talking about is, why doesn't Bandai Namco allow these players to compete as an individual neutral athlete? In the 2024 Olympics, Russia was not allowed to participate because of, once again, the ongoing war with Ukraine. But the Olympics didn't want to punish the athletes who spent their entire lives competing and looking forward to this event. So they told them, if you do not enter as a Russian athlete and just enter as a neutral, like you basically have a gray flag and you're not representing any country, you win a medal, that medal doesn't count towards any country. If you enter that way, you can compete. And this is something that other esports also does. In the 2024 Olympics as well, China had no restrictions against them. So I'm sitting here thinking, like, why can China perfectly enter the 2024 Olympics, but not the Tekken World Tour? But also, when you take into account, many other esports tournaments also deals with these same issues. Some of them outright allow China to enter just like the Olympics, but then for Russia, they also adopt the same rules as the Olympics. You have this tournament here, this esports tournament, where they say as long as Russia continues its illegal war on Ukraine, I don't think Russian athletes should be allowed to compete in international sports. That sounds a little bit like Tekken, but when you skip down and you continue reading, it says this translated, you can read all the other text, but it says this translated to the decision not to use international flags for the competing teams and on-air talent not using the word Russia on broadcast. So they basically came to the same agreement as the Olympics did, where Russians can compete, but they just cannot be identified as Russian. They will only be identified as the individual. So before we even get to Bandai Namco's response to this whole situation, I just think, one, it could have been prevented at multiple different levels, but also when you talk about the rules that they are creating. This is the second time that I'm seeing a rule create huge backlash. The second rule that I'm referring to is the coaching. For the TWT 2025, they should definitely redo the rules around coaching and better say what is and is not allowed. But then also, now you want to add this blocked regions to the list as well, and figure out which country should and should not be participating, but then also see if you can allow them to compete as an individual neutral athlete. With that being said, let's now talk about Bandai Namco's response. I actually wasn't expecting a response out of them, but this situation got very, very big on Twitter. I'll quickly show you guys some tweets. XCC says, my first international event at TGU team. Thank you to the sponsors. I am a proud Chinese and I continue to practice regardless of my results. Tags Harada as well, right? This has over 1,000 likes at the time of recording and probably has way more. And this is something too about China. China, we know they have a very competitive scene within Tekken. Harada went over there probably like 3 or 4 times and he took a look at the tournament scene themselves. The fact that Harada acknowledged me, the fact that he acknowledged them, but then he did not think of a way to let these guys participate is beyond me. These guys obviously want to compete. They're obviously super talented as well. To gatekeep multiple regions when there's a way to circumvent that, it's just a huge oversight from Bandai Namco. We know how this game is struggling to keep players, and them locking out multiple regions from competing isn't helping that. If I was them, I would be allowing everyone to show up as an individual neutral athlete so that my tournament and my game can continue to grow. But now let's look at Bandai Namco's response. We have to disqualify a player from Tiger Uppercut Master event who does not reside in an eligible country under the Tekken World Tour 2024 regulations. Although we did our best to explain the circumstances to the player and followed the official rules, this led to an unprecedented situation, talking about all of the backlash from Twitter. We understand that this decision has caused disappointment among some members of the community, and we will consider adjusting the rules for future seasons. Thank you for your understanding. So this doesn't really go too much into detail, which is why I wanted to make the video and also talk about some ways these rules can be adjusted, because a lot of people were thinking, what are you going like, are you just going to unban them, or are you going to allow them to compete other ways? A lot of other esports events understands that punishing the player, punishing the individual for what the government is doing is not necessarily the best way to go.